probably a little early.
Yeah, I'll do it with any luck the Friday before Thanksgiving so people can do their weekend marketing.
Got it. Okay, we are just talking about health benefits here.
Okay.
And is this something that comes up? I mean, when people ask for your relish recipe, are they looking for the health-promoting qualities of cranberries?
No, usually they're looking to get away from the table, or they're exercising their eyes because of the brilliant, shocking pink color. But I know it's good for us. It's got lots of vitamin C, right?
That's right, but there's actually something a little more interesting, at least to scientists. There are polyphenols, anthocyanins, all kinds of plant compounds.
It sounds like mouthwash.
It gets really confusing. But you know what? In order to sort of peer inside the berry, I visited a lab at the U.S. Department of Agriculture where they have these fancy techniques from liquid chromatography to mass spectrometry. They can actually detect bioactive compounds in cranberries that scientists didn't even know about 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So here's what happened. About a week ago, I arrived at the lab and I was looking for the director.
I'm Jim Harnley, the research leader for the Food Composition and Method Development Lab.
The lab is set up in an old building that just sort of blends into the farm landscape here at the USDA's Human Nutrition Research Center in Beltsville, Maryland. From the outside, you'd never guess that researchers here are on the cutting edge of food science. They've helped develop a comprehensive method to measure antioxidants and loads of other plant-based compounds. It's important because we know that people who eat lots of fruits and vegetables tend to be healthier. This technique will help scientists figure out which compounds or groups of compounds may be most beneficial. I arrived with a bag of fresh cranberries, and Harnley told me that the first steps to figure out what's going on inside is to chop them, dry them, and grind them up. He's got an industrial-sized coffee grinder.
Push down on the lever, and you grind the sample.
And what you've got is pulverized cranberry.
Absolutely right. Dry pulverized cranberry in this case.
And you're telling me there's a way to figure out exactly what's inside this cranberry?
Yes.
Harnley takes the pulverized cranberry and puts it in a vial. He leads me over to a wall of machinery designed to detect plant compounds. There, a robotic arm equipped with a needle pierces the vial, extracts some of the cranberry, and within a few minutes starts to graph results on a computer screen. So what are we seeing now? Is this the actual chromatogram?
Yes, you will see this these series of peaks coming off, and we can see a series of 1, 2, 3, 4 peaks.
Each peak represents one compound, or polyphenol, and Harnley knows from past experiments that cranberries and other berries are loaded with these compounds.
What we have here, we've listed 18 different compounds that we've found, and these are either anthocyanins.
Anthocyanins. Those are those compounds that make foods really colorful, right?
That's what's giving you the color in your cranberry. That's right.
And perhaps much of the benefit, too. After I left the lab, I called Jeffrey Blumberg at Tufts University to help me make sense of these anthocyanins.
Yes, anthocyanins from cranberries and other berry fruit, too, may, in fact, contribute importantly to promoting our health.
Blumberg says the interesting thing about anthocyanins is that they seem to work in more than one way in our bodies. They have antioxidant power, fighting against the damage of our cells, and there's another way, too.
It seems that small amounts of these phytochemicals find their way from plant foods like cranberries into our cells, and then they direct our cells to reduce our inflammatory reactions.
So actually fight against inflammation.
Exactly, and of course inflammation is not only something that we see with infectious diseases, but inflammation, chronic low levels of inflammation now appear very clear to be an important risk factor for both cardiovascular disease and cancer.
So now we know why cranberries are good for us. But let's get back to the fun part. How do we get more of them into our diet? Well, cranberry relish is one way, right, Susan Stamberg?
Sure. We have it at Thanksgiving dinner, of course, and we have it for breakfast the next morning, lunch, dinner, and this goes on. And with leftovers, it's terrific. Also very good with roast beef and nice and juice.
And I have heard you say that your recipe sounds terrible, but tastes terrific.
Good
Are you
girl.
sure that everyone agrees with you?
Not a bit.
And, you know, the sour cream is the thing that's always made me a little frightened.
That could be your next scientific experiment. That, the onion, chickens, the horse.
Well, maybe, but let's get back to cranberries. So if relish isn't going to do it for you, let me introduce you to mixologist Gina Chersavani. She's got a different approach to cranberries.
Everybody always assumes you have to cook cranberries and boil them away with sugar.
Right, they're so bitter
Yeah.
and acidic. But she doesn't cook them. Her forte is liquid. She runs the bar here at this trendy and cavernous restaurant called PS7's, just a stone's throw from NPR headquarters.
We're going to actually juice our cranberries in a juicer, and we're going to put a little bit
In
of
go the berries, some strained pear juice, and a simple syrup made from honey, water, and quince. And then she pours us each a glass.
This is so much fun.
It's like regal. Wow. If you want the recipe for this drink and a bunch more, or want to learn more about the superpowers of blueberries, check out my video series, Tiny Desk Kitchen. That's at npr.org/health. I'm Allison Aubrey.
IPOs are on the uptick in Asia, so much so they're expected to pass U.S. offerings this year. Find out why in 5 minutes on the Marketplace Morning Report on WITF 89.5 and 93.3 in Chambersburg. I'm Tim Lambert. Good morning. Programming is supported by Pepper Hamilton LLP, with 500 lawyers providing legal counsel on complex litigation, business, and regulatory matters throughout Pennsylvania, the nation, and the world at pepperlaw.com. It's 48 in Camp Hill at 7:49, and it's time for a WITF traffic update. In Dauphin County, there's an accident in West Hanover along Allentown Boulevard at Manor Road. Also in Lancaster County, East Lampeter Township, an accident along Eastbrook Drive at Lincoln Highway. Scanning the Mid-State's major highways, we're just seeing typical builds for this time of the morning. No problems to tell you about along Interstate 81 at routes 11 and 15. Traffic is also moving well in Dauphin County along I-83 at Union Deposit Road. Mostly cloudy this morning, then becoming sunny this afternoon with a high of 58. A slight chance of a shower after midnight tonight, the low 41. And tomorrow, some rain, mainly in the afternoon, with a high of 52. It's 41 in Why Missing.
This is the WITF Business Minute, powered by the Central Penn Business Journal. 3 projects with mid-state ties are among nearly 30 initiatives set to receive a total of $174 million in grants and low-interest loans. They're from the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority, known as PennVest. Pennsylvania American Water in Derry Township will get more than $11 million to help Susquehanna County residents access uncontaminated drinking water. The Lancaster County Conservation District will get more than $240,000 to help reduce runoff into the Chesapeake Bay. Energy Works Biopower will receive an $11 million loan to build a manure collection and treatment facility for a chicken farm in Adams County that will also help reduce runoff into the bay. The head of the York County Economic Development Corporation is joining an American delegation headed to Europe at the end of the month. The goal of the trip is to find European alternative energy companies to make investments in central Pennsylvania. Melanie Hirschhorn, WITF News.
Says it doesn't need a bailout, but Europe's not buying it.
Marketplace Morning Report is produced in association with the University of Southern California.
From American Public Media in New York, good morning. I'm Jeremy Hobson. Ireland continues to insist it is not the next Greece. The country's leaders say it does not need a bailout. Today, the Irish government said it's working with European leaders to help stabilize its economy, but it insists that it can keep paying its bills for the foreseeable future. So, what is the deal? Here's the BBC's Russell Padmore in London.
The Irish government insists it has enough money to last until next June, and it won't need a bailout. In May, European countries orchestrated a $146 billion bailout for Greece. Now those same nations believe it's vital to stabilise the euro currency, and the Irish should accept a rescue package of more than $100 billion. But Minister for Justice Dermot Ahern told Ireland's national broadcaster RTE rumours of a bailout were false.
It is fiction because what we want to do is get on with the business of bringing forward the 4-year plan, dealing with the budget, the first budget, which is a very important part, and that's where all our energies are.
The government's reassurances are doing little to calm global markets. Investors are worried the country won't be able to pay back the debts it used to finance government spending. That's made it even more expensive for Ireland to borrow money. It's also raised concerns that other heavily indebted European countries like Portugal and Spain might also need a bailout. In London, I'm the BBC's Russell Padmore for Marketplace.
Lots of internet email news to tell you about this morning. AOL has announced Project Phoenix, the long-awaited overhaul of its email. And later this morning, Facebook is expected to announce an email service of its own, which some are already calling the Gmail killer. Marketplace's Stacey Vanek Smith is here with me now live to sort through all these domain names. Good morning, Stacey.
Good morning, Jeremy.
So AOL announced yesterday a new email service. Why did they roll this out last night?
Well, basically, as you said, it was all about Facebook. Facebook is expected to announce its own email service a bit later this morning, and that's actually the real news here, because these days the business of email is not actually about email. I spoke with NetTech's Steve Kennedy about this. Here was his take.
Doing email is nothing to do with actually providing an email service. It's providing an advertising platform.
Email services can now mine your emails, and they show you ads based on what you're talking about. Facebook already has tons of information on us, so all of that together would be an advertising goldmine.
And now, why is Facebook's email service already being called the Gmail killer?
Yes. Well, Facebook already has 500 million users, and if all of those users start using Facebook email, it would make Facebook the biggest email provider in the world by far, more than double the size of Gmail. But Duke University's Ken Wilber thinks this actually might be kind of a dangerous move for Facebook.
If you talk to college students, for them, email is, for people over 30. It's like, don't trust anyone with an email account.
And Wilbur points out that having an older people image is part of the problem AOL has now.
I think a lot of us feel a lot older right now. Marketplace's Stacey Vanek Smith, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
And let's do the numbers. Markets in Europe are mixed at this hour. Stocks in Tokyo rose today after Japan said its economy grew by a surprising 3.9% last quarter. Earnings just in from the home improvement chain Lowe's, they were lower than expected because Lowe's says consumers put off expensive home renovations. On Wall Street on Friday, the Dow fell 90 points to close at 11,192. Thanks so much.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by the all-new Chevrolet Volt, available soon in select markets. Details at ChevyVolt.com. The all-new Chevrolet Volt. It's more car than electric. By Ally Bank, offering its Raise Your Rate CD, as well as an online savings account and money market account. Learn more at allybank.com. And by the Wall Street Journal Weekend, offering 4 sections of ideas and information. Available at newsstands every Saturday.
GM goes public on Thursday, and a Chinese automaker is expected to be one of the big buyers of GM shares. In the world of entrepreneurship, a similar trend is developing, with the U.S. facing ever greater competition from abroad and especially from Asia. From the Marketplace Entrepreneurship Desk at Oregon Public Broadcasting, Mitchell Hartman reports.
An analysis by Bloomberg found that Asian companies will garner 2/3 of the capital from initial public offerings this year. U.S. companies will get just about 10%. A decade ago, U.S. IPOs were way out in front, and companies in Asia weren't ready to go public.
5 or 6 years ago, I was not impressed with what I saw.
That's Berkeley researcher Vivek Wadhwa, and I reached him in Bangalore, India. He'd just been teaching entrepreneurs in Malaysia and was on his way to China.
Today, I'm absolutely completely blown away by the energy, by the enthusiasm, and by the quality of companies that I'm seeing in both India and China. Move forward 5 years, these countries will dwarf the United States in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship.
Asian companies are already raising a lot of money to grow from investors in Asia and the U.S. Emily Mendel of the National Venture Capital Association explains where that leads.
Increasing interest in investing in China, investing in Asia. The results of that won't be seen for some time because, again, a venture capital investment is typically 5 to 10 years.
Mendel says Asian governments have changed tax laws and regulations to make investment more attractive. Vivek Wadhwa says they're also starting to crack down on graft and bureaucracy.
The Indian and Chinese governments, even though they're corrupt, they know that their future lies in allowing this entrepreneurship and allowing the innovation to happen.
That same energy is spilling over into the U.S., says Robert Lighton of the Kauffman Foundation.
Roughly 1/4 of our successful high-tech companies have been founded or co-founded by immigrants over the last decade.
Lighton wants the U.S. to grab even more of that startup spirit.
And so if I could wave a magic wand, all those foreign immigrants that are now at American universities, I would give them a green card as soon as they graduate and let them stay here, because we know disproportionately they will found new firms and create more